My name's Virginia Hernandez. I came to the colony in 1948. I remember that in September. It was in September because my sister was born 2 weeks after we got here. I was about almost 5, not quite school age. My brother was, but I wasn't. And I remember coming into a 2-room little shack, just 2 rooms. And there was 4 of us kids. Well, 4 of us kids and my mom and my dad.
My name is Frankie Barra. I don't know if I was born there or not, but I think probably was born there.
I came to Lamar in 1948. I came here in October that year. I was about 5 years old then, and I was totally, it was a totally different experience for me because coming into a country that you don't know the language, you don't know the customs, the foods, and all that, everything is going to be sort of a new adventure for you. So it was exciting because I was just a little child, but at the same time, I was amazed at the things that before me, as far as the people was concerned, as far as what was I doing?
Ya estaba grandecita cuando nos fuimos nosotros aquí nos movimos para la colonia. Sí, porque yo nací en Las Ánimas, ahí vivimos en Las Ánimas. Pues uno no tenía mucho que mover, criaturas. No tenía uno que es que felices, pues el que tenía feliz decía que estaba rico. No, pues nomás en un quemilito, cada quien su quemilito, su ropa. No tenían lo que, ¿cómo te decir? Como roperos, nada de eso. Todo, bueno, uno daba uno su ropa y la ponía en cajas. No tenía uno que es que ropero, que y ahora pues ropero y que tanto quiere la gente. Y ya se conformaba uno con tener uno que comer y pues cuál ropero, no sabía nada uno de roperos.
Okay, my name is Alfonsa Herrera, and in the 1950s, that's when I got married, and my husband and me moved into the Colonia, and that's where my in-laws were living at the time.
It was rough. There was nothing there. I mean, we didn't have no water, running water or nothing like that. No lights, no heaters, gas heaters, and it was, I don't know, but we managed, I guess.
The buildings themselves were made out of adobe. There was no pavement other than maybe the floors were made out of cement, and that's about it. There was no indoor plumbing, no indoor water, and we lived in little cubicles. Each apartment was 4 little rooms. A room for your bedroom, a living room, and the kitchen, and a utility room in the back. And that's what it comprised of. So it was really hard living. And the electricity was there, but it wasn't. The electricity wasn't there, but it was simply a very simple configuration of just cords hanging from the ceiling for a light, and there was no plug-ins to speak of. You either put in a little socket inside where the light bulb should be and plug into there. So it was really hard. It was really hard living there as far as that goes. There was no playgrounds. There was nothing like that. It was just the buildings and dirt outside with some trees. And that was basically what it comprised of.
To me, it was good. I mean, I had food to eat. I had everything, To me, it wasn't poor. But to other people, you would say we were living in poverty, because we didn't have no running water. We had electricity, but we didn't have any fancy anything like that, most of my clothes or my brothers and sisters' clothes came from hand-me-downs, and we were happy.
Well, I used to live here in Lamar, but in town, and it was totally different because here we had the water inside, we had uh, different uh, things than the Colonia. But when went in there, I was surprised, and I just, for a while there, it took me months to get used to it. But after, you know what, after I got used to it, it was quiet.
There was 4 toilets, and they were 2 holders, and so you'd go. Of course, they were divided. You'd go in one, and then the other one would go in the other, and you wait. And there was no toilet paper. You had to use whatever, mainly Sears and Roebuck or newspapers or whatever you had to use. We didn't have any running water. We did the dishes. We had a cistern. We'd go and get some buckets full of water and bring them on down. It was a little ways, the pump, and you had to pump it. Oh, that water was so good and so sweet. But yet, when they cleaned it, there were surprises in the bottom of the deal that we didn't get sick.
We had to chop wood to keep warm. We had to get water from the cistern in the middle of the colony. We had to get buckets and go get water so we could use in the house, and water so we could bathe. We'd have to heat up water to bathe, because we had to bathe in the tub. We didn't have no, showers or nothing like that.
And the showers was really funny because you put a big tub in the center. The youngest ones took a bath. The older ones would give the little ones a bath, and they took a bath. You got a bucket of warm water, and you gave them their bath and everything. And the water, of course, stimulated. And then the other one, and then the other one. Well, by the time it got to be your turn, the water was, muddy. Because, the soap and the scum and all that, But you never thought about it. You'd go in there, take your bath and everything, and then at the end, you'd put your foot out and rinse it out, and then put your other one, rinse it out, and get out. Because if not, you'd see the soap, and all that. But that's what we did.
Since we only had one bedroom for 10 kids, we were all piled up like sardines. And that was typical for almost everybody that lived there. They had a lot of kids, but we only all had 4 rooms to share the whole family with.
Did you know Daniel, or?
Oh yeah. In fact, when they were coming from Mexico, me and this other friend of mine, we used to go up there. There was a whole bunch of trees on the south side of the colony. We used to go there, wait and see if they were coming in. Waited for about 3 or 4 days before they came in. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember when they came in. Yeah.
Where were they coming from?
Mexico. Yeah.
And you would just wait for them to
Yeah,
arrive?
because they told us it was Daniel and his cousin, and they were pretty close to our age, so we were waiting for them and couldn't. Finally, about 3 days or so later, they showed up.
My brothers had a bed of their own, and the girls had a bed of their own. Not each, but the boys all slept in one bed, and the girls all slept in one bed. And we didn't sleep like this, like the bed is like this. We didn't sleep like that. We slept like that because there were so many of us, and and you woke up in the morning, you woke up peeved because whoever peed at night, of course it would run. My mom used to cover that mattress with plastic, so of course it's gonna run all over.
Well, actually, we had 2 houses. The boys used to sleep in one house, and my mom and dad and the girls to sleep in the other house, which I think was 4 rooms to a house, if I remember right. But it was nothing fancy, just an adobe houses.
Because the houses weren't houses. They were long adobe buildings, and they were split, you know.
Long before they built the Pueblo Dam, the Arkansas River was much wider. And if you happen to go through it right now, you'll see little branches that are kind of like spread out wide open. Well, they used to be full of water from one end to the other. So the Arkansas River was it was a major water fair for the pioneers. And this valley here, I recall it being referred to as the land of milk and the land of milk and honey, simply because there was a lot of produce being grown here, because simply we had plenty of water. So the sugar beets became one of the major crops for the sugar. So we did have a lot of sugar beet fields. A lot of farmers were raising beets because they were profitable. And so we had, not only Lamar had a sugar plant, but La Junta had one, Rocky Ford had one, and Holly had one. And they were like a brotherhood of sugars companies that conglomerated together to form this sugar beet industry. Yeah, well, you see the Colonia, when I came to the Colonia, I came in 48, but the Colonia had been existing longer than that, because that sugar, whenever that sugar plant that was built here, that's when that Colonia was built. And it was made for the people that worked for the sugar plant. But since they were migrants to go out in the fields and work the fields, that's why they were allowed to be there. The only thing that you can see today from the sugar plant is that big long building that the BMS has for trusses, and where WHO is now. There was 3 of them, and they knocked down one of them, or 2 of them, and left one standing, and that's the one that you see today. And the railroad tracks would come to them so that they could load them up with the sugar beets, the sugar, and take it out.
You know, so, and we had like a foreman. He had his own house, and he didn't boss us around. He just went around saying, okay, you can do this, or you can't do that, or if we have a big old fire and put tires in there, no, that can't be done, or stuff like that.
We had to go out and work in the fields that's what, like paying for the house, and like rent. We had to go out in the sugar beets and work out there in the field, and that took care of the rent.
Working in the sugar beets was hard work, and today there is laws placed for child labor, but back then they were kind of slacked, and so they really kind of didn't enforce it. If there was some in place, we didn't know about it, but we did work. We worked over there. The labor was hard. A machine would come up and dig up the sugar beets, and then we call them topping. They got machines now that do the topping, but back then it was all done by hand. And we had these big knives with a hook on the end, big long machetes. They were about 18 to 20 inches long, and about a 4-inch blade with a 3-inch hook on the end. And that was so that you could hook the sugar beet, pick it up, and top off the topping, throw it down, get another one. It was just a repeated process all day long. And as a child, I couldn't handle a knife simply because it was dangerous. And so my parents would do that, and us kids would be following them and gathering up the beets and throwing them in the basket so we could carry them over to a loader, and then they would throw them into the truck. It was an all-day show. From sunrise to sunset, about 14 hours of work.
Well, we used to go out there and hoe beets, and then when it's time to get them for harvest, we used to go out there and cut the ends off of and put them and leave them on the road, and then they come and pick them up. But we used to go in the morning till the evenings.
No, I never worked in the fields because I prefer to stay home and cook. And my sisters did. Well, my sister Margaret did. She'd go work in the fields and the onions and Grenada and all that. And my mom did at times. And I'd stay with the little ones because I did not like being out there. I did not like, to me, that, okay, well, somebody has to stay and cook. I said, I will. So I stayed home.
And wait for the husbands to come and eat from the fields. They would go to the fields and work. And we had supper ready when they came back.
My mother would be an early riser, so she would be cooking breakfast for us. And I can almost smell the food that she might be cooking that morning. But a typical morning was a kind of since we were all poor, we really didn't have the bacon and egg breakfast with hash browns and all that we normally have today. But back then, I do remember my mother would be cooking a pot of beans and potatoes, and sometimes we had bacon. And I do remember once in a while having some pork.
My grandfather used to have pigs and chickens, and then he had a garden, and he used to plant all kinds of vegetables and watermelons and stuff like that. And then he'd kill the pigs or chickens, and so we had food all the time.
There was Mr. Ibarra, which he had like a community garden, but it wasn't, you couldn't just go pick anything. It was done by him and his wife, but they would give us stuff. They would give us tomatoes or, as kids, when we'd go visit them. And I remember clearly the big old stalks of sugar canes that man used to give us.
We had to do laundry. And the way we did laundry, there were no machines. That we had to use our tubs and our scrubbers, what they called, in Spanish we call them talladores. And we would scrub our clothes and then hang them out on the line.
And we hang the clothes out summer and winter. It didn't matter. You go out there and hang it in the wintertime, and the clothes were frozen. By the time you went in the house, they were frozen stiff. And at nights, Mom would bring them in the house, or she'd have us bring it in the house,
No había, teníamos que planchar, poner las planchas en la estufa en aquellos años. Poníamos las planchas, todas las planchas en la estufa y luego planchaba uno en la mesa.
We had to iron. I hated that. And to this day, I hate to iron. But because there was no wash and wear, there was nothing like that. We didn't have no dryers. We didn't have a washer. We had to, in the beginning, Mom washed by hand, because we didn't have it. And then Daddy finally bought her one of those machines at Maytag, and it washed the clothes, but you had to put it through the wringer. I caught myself a couple of times in that stupid wringer, but I learned how to do it later on. I got a stick.
Back then, we couldn't go to school at 5 years old. We had to wait until we were 7 years old before we were allowed to start first grade. There was no such thing as kindergarten. It was a little schoolhouse in the back of the Colonia. There was a little schoolhouse. And in that little schoolhouse, it was just a building made out of adobe and a classroom in the front and a utility room in the back where we had lunch and where we had gatherings and community affairs there. But there was nothing more than that. It didn't have anything other than just electricity. There was no running water in there. There was no anything else. No, the heating was just a pot-bellied stove in the back. And the outhouses, one for the boys outside and one for the girls, and a little playground. And that was all that the Colonia was. And it was made basically for all the people that lived in the Colonia. So the classroom wasn't a very big classroom. It was the old-fashioned type of seats where everybody sat in a row, and there was an inkwell and the top, and that was your desk.
What I remember is going to school there, but not going to school for school, going because they would give the siblings of the ones that were in school milk, free milk. And as long as you took your little container that they gave you one to begin with. And then you take it home, drink it, wash it, and bring it back. And then they would keep, as long as you brought your little container around, they would actually give you free milk, chocolate or white. Of course, we was new to chocolate, so we wanted chocolate.
I went to Lincoln and then went to junior high, which is in the middle school now. And I think I was the only Mexicano there.
Really?
Because all them gringos were looking down on me.
Did you ever had like a bad encounter with them?
No, but they were prejudiced, real prejudiced then. But no, I never did have anything real bad happen.
They here, even when I was born here, they would sit me 15 minutes in back of the classroom. If they would hear one word in Spanish that I couldn't pronounce and they didn't know what it was, okay, you miss recess, 15 minutes. So normal, they would let me go for recess because of that. Because I know that was when they were more racistas.
We walked to school from clear up there, clear to Lincoln. There was no buses. There was no, my dad only had a little bitty old Model A truck, and once in a while he would take us to school on his way to work, because he worked all the time. I lived there until about, I was 11 years old, I believe. And then we moved into town. But that was because they told us everybody has to move out. But I don't remember the dates, exactly the dates, but I know that it was between 53 and 55 that they told us you got to move. You can't. They told my parents that. They didn't tell us kids.
Oh heck, I don't know. I'd say probably, because I think I was driving when we left from there, so I must have been about 16 or 17 before we left. And after that, we just moved into town, and everything changed.
Then the Colonia was shut down. Everybody had a deadline to leave, and they were shutting it down, and I believe they shut it down in 54 or 55. And that's when the Colonia was shut down. And then later on, I don't know how long that the buildings stayed there, and they just came in with caterpillars and raised them down, foundations and all. No plaque, no nothing, just bare ground, mind you.
Here when we moved to town, then about, what was it, 5 years or something, 4 years they knocked it down, and everybody had to move out of there, and they had to have their houses ready-made in a hurry or rent or whatever they were going to do.
The people that migrated away from the Colonia went in different ways. Some of them, when they went back to Mexico. Some of them went out of town, and some of a large portion of the people that lived there, including us, we live right in this area.
It was a quick notice to where we would have had more notice. Maybe the houses we were living in would have been built better, but it was a quick move.
I think that I think Neil Plant came in, and then I think that's when they knocked it down. I'm not sure, but all that industry came in over there, and I think they knocked it down then.
Whenever they start building houses here that they built, they just, like modern houses, I see they use levels, they use windows and measure them, they do different things. Well, here it was just they bought the things they needed, and however they could put them on, they put them on. They didn't measure, they didn't level the. That's why now when we went out repair the windows, Every time we repair windows, we have to go by, send them back to do them a different way. Take off a little bit of side, take off a little bit of top, so it could fit in perfect. But other than that, we have had a hard time redoing the house. The houses we live in now are poorly made.
I really thought that was kind of sad when they tore it down, because why it's not bothering anybody. I don't know. I think it's kind of sad that people don't even know about this stuff.
Well, I think it's a good deal. I mean, people don't know what's happening there, you know. And I guess that for all these other young kids that realize what everybody went through.
Oh, it's very, very important. It's very important that they know their backgrounds of their families, because a lot of the modern boys and girls, they don't know families. They don't know what went back to the grandpas or great grandpas, their living thing or whatever, where they would live and what when they went through. Maybe this will help them refresh their mind a little bit, to think about them and say, okay, they did have a home, however it was, but they had a home, and they had hard times, and so. No, but I'm so glad that you're doing this, and I was proud that finally they put a sign there on Main Street. I don't know if they're gonna leave it there or take it off. The one on the Main Street that it says the Colonia.
It's a shame that the Colonia hasn't been recognized as a historical site, and it was considered an eyesore, and so what you see today is what's left of Lamar. It's Colonia.
I don't consider my life in the colony. I don't consider it being bad. I mean, none of my brothers and sisters lacked for anything. You know, as far as food and clothing and all that. The colony was good for me. I don't know if I would have done with my life any different than what I've done now. You know, it wouldn't have not changed nothing for me.
It was so nice living there. I liked it. You know, maybe a lot of people wouldn't have liked it, but it's everybody's opinion. But I did, on my part, and me and Nanny, we liked it.
It was just hard, but I don't know, like I said, other than that, I mean, I enjoyed it. I guess everybody, just like a little family there, the whole Colonia. Because everybody used to get along with everybody there.
Those are big, big memories. And I will always, always keep them in our hearts, because we went through all that. I feel like that Colonia helped a lot of people that I know.